Inside the Magic, show number 324 for June 19th, 2011. It is Sunday, June 19th, 2011. This is show 324 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I'm your host, Ricky Briganti. Got another great show packed with Disney and theme park news and a whole lot more fun. And before we get started, I do invite you to visit our website at InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news articles, and so much more. And if you ever have any news, tips, or questions, you can write to me at Ricky@InsideTheMagic.net, or you can call and leave a message at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. Beat the heat this summer. Book a 5-night package with park tickets for July or August travel dates, and everyone in your party will receive a free 1-day water park ticket to Typhoon Lagoon or Blizzard Beach. Restrictions apply, and free dining is back. So contact Magical Travel for a quote. You can call at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote, and be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive a free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And by listeners like you, thanks very much for your contributions to the show, be it a monthly recurring donation, a one-time donation, or just clicking through any of the affiliate links over at InsideTheMagic.net. All of it goes to support the show, and we thank you very much for that. And now we'll start off the show with our trip around the world. And here we are at show 324 of Inside the Magic, another live show on InsideTheMagic.net/live. So hi to everybody who is listening and watching live. And anyone out there listening to the audio podcast or checking out the replay on YouTube, definitely tune in on Sunday afternoons is generally when we're going to be doing the live broadcast, usually about 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is a little bit after that right now. And so if you want to see me record each week's show live, that is the time to do it over at InsideTheMagic.net/live. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump right on into this week's Disney news. We're going to start off with this week, the annual Global Attractions Attendance Report from the Themed Entertainment Association, the TEA, was released for 2010. And once again, Disney has led the pack by a long shot in attendance for theme park attendance, of course. They took 9 out of the top 11 spots. The Magic Kingdom saw 16.97 million visitors in 2010, which surprisingly is a 1.5% decrease over the numbers for 2009, although still a very impressive number. Epcot likewise also dropped 1.5% to 10.83 million visitors, ended up in 5th place on the list, but the number 2 spot went to Disneyland out in California, of course, and that took, like I said, the number 2 spot at 15.98 million visitors. That was actually up 0.5%. Animal Kingdom and Hollywood Studios were at 7th and 8th place on the list at just under 10 million guests each, and California Adventure was up 3%, most likely due to World of Color's debut, and that was at 11th place on the list with 6.28 million visitors. But it was actually Universal Studios, both in Florida and in California, that saw huge increases. They didn't quite get up to Disney's numbers in many cases, but they definitely are doing much, much better, largely in Florida as a result of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opening at Islands of Adventure, where that park in 2009 saw a 13.8% drop in attendance, whereas in 2010 it jumped 30.2% up in attendance to almost 6 million visitors. So a huge increase for that park as a result of the Wizarding World. And also nearby Islands of Adventure, the Universal Studios Florida Park saw a 6.1% attendance increase to 5.93 million. They still sit at 12th and 13th place behind Disney's Orlando parks. Universal Studios Hollywood saw a 26% jump in attendance to a little over 5 million as a result of King Kong 3D opening up on their backlot tour. And overseas, Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea doing very well in 2010. They were up 6%. We're actually 3rd and 4th places on the list. However, due to the recent earthquake in Japan, I would imagine that 2011 is not going to be such a great attendance number for them, but that's obviously understandable. Disneyland Park in Paris was down 17.6% in attendance, not so great there. Meanwhile, Walt Disney Studios Park, huge increase, nearly 70% over 2009. And meanwhile, Hong Kong Disneyland was up 13% as well. So definitely a lot to be seen there. If you want to see even more numbers from the TEA report, then head on over to InsideTheMagic.net to see all the figures and comparisons between all the parks. Moving on to topic number 2, we're going to be out here in Orlando for this one, where Disney has announced some details for the 2011 Epcot International Food and Wine Festival, one of my favorite events of the year, and it's coming back to Epcot once again for the 16th time. It's the 16th year of the Epcot Food and Wine Festival. This year is a passport to a world of flavors, as Disney's calling it. It's going to launch on September 30th and run daily through November 13th, and there are some new cuisines being introduced into the Food and Wine Festival this year. They are coming from Hawaii, the Caribbean islands, and Portugal. These foods will include Kahlua pork sliders, ropa vieja, and a calamari salad, amongst others. Also being added to the Food and Wine Festival this time is something new. It's called the Odyssey Lounge, and it's going to be in the old Odyssey restaurant, and there will be games, internet access, web access, charging stations for electronic devices, so incentives for people to stick around Epcot even longer. And it's not clear as to whether that lounge is only for the Food and Wine Festival or if it'll continue on past that, but it will definitely be opening in time for Food and Wine. Sounds pretty exciting. And moving on over to the Magic Kingdom, where this week some new concept art was released for the ongoing Fantasyland expansion. More specifically, it's a further look at Storybook Circus, the replacement for Mickey's Toontown Fair. This new artwork shows some new details. Some things have been moved around or changed, or new colors have been, added to the artwork over previous artwork. It shows the double Dumbo. Of course, there will be 2 Dumbo carousels as part of the Storybook Circus now, in addition to Dumbo and it's a tent featuring some interactive areas that'll avoid or let you avoid waiting in line for Dumbo. There will also be a Casey Jr. Roundhouse area. It's basically a Casey Jr. train themed, not an actual train, but it's a train themed water play area that's going to have mist and squirts and monkeys and elephants and camels, and that's going to be near the rethemed train station in Storybook Circus. And then, of course, the Barnstormer is remaining, but it will now be starring the Great Goofini. And throughout the area, there will be plenty of other circus tents, presumably for shops and, merchandise and meet and greets and all that kind of thing. But Disney hasn't commented specifically on what will be coming to the rest of Storybook Circus. But if you want a closer look at that new artwork, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net, and you can see a good glimpse at what Storybook Circus is going to look like. Of course, New Fantasyland is going to open in phases beginning in the end of 2012, moving into 2013. Disney has not said yet exactly when Storybook Circus versus the rest of New Fantasyland is going to open, but I'm sure that information will come as we get closer. And over at Disney's Hollywood Studios, a new character is going to be added to Lights, Motors, Action sometime later this summer. It is none other than Lightning McQueen. I'm pretty sure we've said that on the show before, that he is on his way. In fact, I think Lightning McQueen was already supposed to be part of Lights, Motors, Action by now, but for whatever reason, it hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen later this summer. So there's going to be a whole chase scene involving Lightning. He's actually going to be replacing the Herbie the Love Bug scene in Lights, Motors, Action. So if you enjoy that part of it, you might want to run out and see that attraction as soon as possible. And then later this summer, Lightning McQueen. And it was just announced this week some new availability for booking for Disney Story rooms. These are highly themed hotel rooms for Walt Disney World for 2012. Booking is now available for the Royal Guest Rooms at Disney's Port Orleans Resort in Riverside. Of course, these rooms are not available yet. They're not ready yet. They'll be ready in early spring 2012. The prices for these rooms are going to start at $189 per night, but you can now call up Disney Reservations and book one of those rooms. In addition, Disney has now begun booking Disney's Art of Animation Resort next to Pop Century. That's not open yet either. It's not opening till summer of 2012, and the rooms there are starting at $94 per night for a standard room, or the family suites at Art of Animation start at $200 $48 per night. So if you're interested in being one of the first to stay in either of those types of rooms, you might want to get on the phone and book ASAP. And Disney, let's see, Doug, an Inside the Magic listener, wrote to me just a couple of days ago and let me know that Disney this week filed some construction permits for over in Adventureland at the Magic Kingdom. Apparently, the old Adventureland Veranda restaurant is going to have some sort of construction going on there. It's not clear as to whether it will be a new restaurant or perhaps just a more elaborate meet and greet area. We'll just have to wait and see where Disney is going with those construction permits, but some sort of activity will be happening there soon. And this week, Disney officially announced that Rapunzel from Disney's very popular film Tangled will indeed become officially the 10th Disney princess. They're going to have a star-studded celebration on October 2nd of this year at Kensington Palace in London, a very royal location for a princess ceremony. In attendance will be all the other Disney princesses: Ariel, Aurora, Belle, Cinderella, Jasmine, Mulan, Pocahontas, Snow White, and Tiana. And Rapunzel will then become an official Disney princess. And then in the parks, once that happens, if you go to Meet Rapunzel, you will see that she will begin wearing her royal tiara as of that moment. Of course, the tiara was stolen from the kingdom by Flynn Rider in the movie Tangled. Then in spring 2012, a new Disney Channel special will be aired, showing the marriage of Rapunzel and Flynn Rider. So if you're a big Tangled fan, a big Rapunzel fan, a lot to be excited about coming up this year and into next year. Let's turn to the world of water parks now, something we don't usually have a lot of news on, but over at Typhoon Lagoon out here at Walt Disney World this week, Disney took part in the second annual World's Largest Swimming Lesson. It's all part of setting a world record for the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest simultaneous swimming lesson ever conducted. It was not only at Typhoon Lagoon, but actually 900 different facilities across the world, including Typhoon Lagoon, and it was estimated that the new record is now around 30,000 swim lesson participants, all happening at exactly the same time. Of course, not all 30,000 were at Typhoon Lagoon. That would be a very, very crowded wave pool. And now let's turn away from Disney here for a second. Just over a year ago, on June 18th, 2010, Universal Orlando officially opened the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. As I mentioned earlier, it has done wonders for their attendance. And Saturday morning, in honor of that one-year anniversary, Universal Orlando commemorated the event at 9:23 a.m., the exact time that the Wizarding World of Harry Potter had opened 1 year prior. There was a countdown in Hogsmeade Village led by the Hogwarts Express conductor. There was confetti and gold streamers, and they handed out free butterbeer, cauldron cakes, and chocolate frogs to those who were in attendance. Of course, you can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net to see everything from the first year of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. From soft openings, we were the first to bring a look at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, an inside look to the world, and beyond that, just so much happened over the last year, and I've summarized it all in a one-year anniversary post. So head on over to InsideTheMagic.net or check this week's show notes to see all of that. And then Universal Orlando this week also opened up something new. It's a churrascaria menu offerings over to Brazilian steakhouse experience at the City Walk's Latin Quarter. It's served rodizio style, which means continuous service of skewers of meats brought tableside until you just can't take it anymore. It sounds really, really tasty. I haven't had a chance to be over there yet, but if you've been to Texas de Brazil, a restaurant on International Drive, and many other locations, it'll be just like that, or even similar to Ohana's at the Polynesian. Of course, different cuisine is served at Ohana's versus a Brazilian steakhouse. But if you're in the mood for a whole lot of food, City Walk's Latin Quarter out here in Florida will be a good way to go. Now let's jump on over to California, where Disney had another fun announcement this week with some new characters coming to Disney California Adventure. The characters of Russell and Doug from Disney Pixar's Up will be appearing in the park just a few days from now, beginning on June 25th. It's all going to be part of the Wilderness Explorers Camp interactive meet and greet. It's going to take place on the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail. The Awani Camp Circle will host a ceremony featuring Russell, in which everybody in attendance, all the guests in attendance, will become senior wilderness explorers. Then you head further down the trail where you encounter Doug, and along the way you can actually earn merit badges. It sounds like it's going to be a whole lot of fun. All of that starting again on June 25th. Then a couple of weeks later, on June 9th, Phineas and Ferb will be making their way to Disney California Adventure in something called Phineas and Ferb's Rockin' Rollin' Dance Party. There's going to be a DJ and dancing and Phineas and Ferb, of course. And it's going to be, sounds like, similar to the Phineas and Ferb play and greet experience that's currently at Disney's Hollywood Studios, although that one has a movie-making theme, and then the one in California Adventure is going to be just a dance party. Also over at Disney California Adventure just a couple of nights ago was the premiere of Laserman Reconfigured. Laserman has been reprogrammed with new music and new multicolored lasers, and I can't wait to see that new version of the show in August when I head out for the D23 Expo. I really enjoyed Laserman's show that he's been putting on since Electronica began at California Adventure last year, and now even more Electronica fun can be looked forward to for any Tron fans over at California Adventure. And Paul from A Window to the Magic emailed me just a couple of days ago to let me know that monthly payments are now available. The monthly payment option for annual passes are now available in California for all residents of California, not just for Southern California residents. Not sure how recently Disney made that change, but it's good news for people all the way across California. You can now make those monthly payments instead of paying it all up front for the hundreds of dollars for annual passes, especially with the recent price increase. Lots of news about the D23 Expo that I just mentioned that's coming up in August at the Anaheim Convention Center. The biggest news this week was the announcement of the Disney Legends that will be in person and accepting their awards as honorees on the first day in the awards ceremony, the first day of D23 Expo at 11 a.m. on Friday, August 19th. Once again, Tom Bergeron will be the host of the Legends ceremony. Of course, he's the host of Dancing with the Stars and America's Funniest Videos on ABC. And this year, it's quite the array of honorees for receiving the Disney Legend Awards, the first of which is going to be honored, well, these are in no particular order, actually, but I will rattle off all of the Disney Legends this year. They are going to start with Regis Philbin. Of course, everybody knows Regis. He was in Live with Regis and Kelly and Regis and Kathy Lee before that for many, many years. As far as Disney's concerned, he's going to have, he has been on ABC's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which was a hugely popular game show years ago, of course, spun off into a Disney attraction. He was the host of the Christmas Day Parade for many, many years, so he'll be becoming a Disney legend at the D23 Expo. They're also going to be honoring Jim Henson, who, of course, is most famous for The Muppets, and unfortunately, Jim Henson is no longer with us, but I'm sure it'll be somebody very close to him accepting the award on his behalf. Other Disney legends being named this year are Jodie Benson, who is the voice of Ariel in The Little Mermaid. Of course, we heard her last week on this show singing from The Little Mermaid opening just a couple of weeks ago. She also played the small role of Sam in Disney's Enchanted. She was also Barbie in Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3. Also becoming a legend this year is Paige O'Hara. She was the voice of Belle in Beauty and the Beast. Then we have Linda Larkin, who is the speaking voice of Princess Jasmine in Aladdin. Annika Noni Rose is going to become a legend for being Princess Tiana in The Princess and the Frog, and this one has a lot of people talking, wondering, thinking perhaps it's too soon for her to become a legend. After all, The Princess and the Frog is only, a year and a half old or something like that, and it seems like some of these folks have had to wait a very long time to become a legend, but there is definitely a princess theme going on with the Legend ceremony this year, so Disney thought it would be good to include her then as well. Then, in addition, one more princess legend, Lea Salonga, is going to become a Disney legend as well. She was the singing voice for Jasmine in Aladdin, as well as the singing voice of Mulan. And still more legends to go. Now we have Barton Bo Boyd, and he may not be familiar to you. He was the assistant merchandise supervisor at Disneyland, spent 33 years with the company, and he, over the years, became vice president of retail merchandising, chairman of Disney Consumer Products. He had a hand in developing very familiar parts of the Disney company, like Walt Disney Records, Disney Interactive, the Walt Disney Classics Collection, and the first Disney store outside of the Disney park. So a lot of very important effects on the Disney company over the years, certainly worthy of becoming a Disney legend. In addition, two more inductees together are Jack and Benita Rather. Back in 1954, that pair had struck a deal with Walt Disney to build the first hotel at Disneyland. Of course, that hotel went on to become what we know today as the Disneyland Hotel. So, very important part of the history of the Walt Disney Company there. In addition, another legend being named this year is Ray Watson, who was on the board of directors for Walt Disney Productions in 1973 and ultimately went on in 1983 to become chairman of the board. And finally, Guy Williams, who years ago played Zorro for Disney. A very important figure in Disney history as well. So there you go. Those are your 2011 Disney Legends, and many of those will be appearing presumably in person to accept their awards at the D23 Expo in August. And those are not the only celebrities, of course, that will appear at the expo. In fact, Cool Waters Productions has announced that they will be bringing some celebrities to the expo. These are not, Disney-brought celebrities. These are actually going to be at the Cool Waters Productions booth somewhere at the Disney D23 Expo, and it'll be a changing lineup each day of the expo. On Friday, August 19th, Cool Waters Productions is going to bring Star Wars and Marvel Day, featuring Star Wars actor Billy D. Williams, a.k.a. Lando Calrissian from the Star Wars films, of course. Doug Jones will be there. He was the Silver Surfer, and Billy from Hocus Pocus, and Matthew Wolfe, who was the voice of Thor in the cartoon series, not the recent movie, will be there as well. Then on Saturday, August 20th, will be Tron Day from both Tron films. Bruce Boxleitner is going to be there, who was Tron himself. He was in both films. Cindy Morgan will be there. She was Yori in the original Tron, as well as Jackson Bostwick, the lead sentry guard from the original Tron. Then from Tron Legacy in the same day, Anis Chirfa, who played Rinsler with the mask on, will be there, as well as Rob Daly, who played the lead sentry guard for Tron Legacy. Then on Sunday, August 21st, will be Pirates of the Caribbean Day, and it will feature actors from Curse of the Black Pearl and At World's End. Those actors are Isaac Singleton Jr., who was Bosun from Black Pearl, Treva Etienne, who was Kohler from the Black Pearl, Vince Lozano was Jacoby from Black Pearl, and Tyler Tione, who was the boiler room attendant from At World's End. So a variety of celebrities available for photographs and autographs, and of course all of that will be for an extra fee, but they'll be there at the D23 Expo. Let's turn to the world of movies now. Pirates of the Caribbean 4 on Stranger Tides continues to do very well at the box office. It's no longer leading the box office by any means, but still doing very well. In fact, worldwide, it has reached over $900 million, well on its way to reaching $1 billion worldwide at the box office, doing very well overseas with over $700 million. It has become Disney's biggest international hit ever. Also in the world of movies, this week the first teaser poster for the upcoming Walt Disney Pictures film John Carter of Mars, or actually as it's going to be called, just John Carter, was released. It's definitely a teaser poster. It doesn't show a whole lot, but the story is based on the John Carter classic novel by Edgar Rice Burroughs. It's going to be helmed by filmmaker Andrew Stanton, who you know from Pixar very well, though this is a live-action movie and has nothing to do with Pixar. And apparently it's going to be a series of movies as long as everything does very well, which it seems like it is. Seems like it's going to be a very creative and a fun sci-fi film for Disney and for fans to enjoy. And then throughout this news section, you've been hearing some Muppet music in the background. Well, just this week, the first official full trailer for The Muppets, the upcoming film, was released. Of course, the film stars the Muppets, Kermit, Miss Piggy, and etc., as well as Amy Adams and Jason Segel, who wrote the film as well. That movie comes out later this year, but the trailer is the first to actually show bits of the movie as opposed to just parody bits that they have released in previous 3 3 trailers. You can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net to see the 3 parody trailers, as well as the new first official full trailer for The Muppets. And this week, another teaser trailer showed up online and then mysteriously disappeared. I guess it wasn't quite ready for prime time, even though it had been put out. It seemed like it was put out officially, and that is for the movie Planes from Disney. This is a spin-off of Cars, and it is coming out in 2013, straight to DVD and Blu-ray, not to theaters, and not from Pixar. In fact, this one is actually going to be from Disney Toon Studios, which is the group who basically makes straight to DVD and Blu-ray movies. So not a theatrical release, and definitely a lot of mixed reactions, many negative, as a result of seeing that trailer online, which may or may not be why it quickly disappeared. And speaking of Cars, over at AOL Music, music.aol.com, you can now preview the entire Cars 2 soundtrack if you want to listen to that before seeing the movie, which comes out just a few days from now. Other Disney movie news, African Cats is coming to a 2-disc Blu-ray and DVD combo pack. The release date has been announced, and that release date is October 4th. And here is some movie-related news. San Diego Comic-Con, of course, is always a huge event every year. Tradition for major movie studios to bring their latest projects or previews of their latest project, lots of sneak peeks, lots of celebrities to the Comic-Con. Well, apparently this year, Disney, along with Warner Brothers and DreamWorks, are basically staying out of the 2011 San Diego Comic-Con. In recent years, Disney promoted the heck out of Tron Legacy, 3 years worth of promotion and millions of dollars invested, and despite all of that, Tron Legacy did not do all that well at the box office. It has done well in merchandising and, of course, Electronica, California Adventure, and in many other respects, but at the box office, it did okay. And plus, Disney's got the D23 Expo coming up, their own convention, just weeks after the San Diego Comic-Con, so it would be a little bit silly for them to make any big announcements or presentations at Comic-Con and then turn around and have nothing left for the Expo for Disney fans to enjoy. So it seems like this year, not too much Disney out of Comic-Con, except Marvel has said, which is Disney-owned now, Marvel has said that they will be at Comic-Con in some capacity, but perhaps not as big of a capacity as some would like. And finally, this isn't really news, but I definitely thought this was worth a mention here. Jen from epbot.com, that's EPBOT.com, has posted some pictures and downloadables, printables, of some really excellent bookmarks that she developed. They are based on the Haunted Mansion stretching portraits, and these bookmarks actually stretch. They're, like I said, you can download them, you can print them, you can create them all on your own for free off of the website, so they look great, and I think I'll have to just print those and make them as well because they look awesome. So I'll check the show notes this week for a link to those bookmarks, as well as to everything else that I just mentioned, lots of videos and articles and everything over at InsideTheMagic.net. And that is it for your news from around the world this week. And this week's tip was sent in from Justin, and in honor of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter reaching its 1-year anniversary, then that's what the tip is all about. Justin writes, here's a tip for people wanting to go to the Wizarding World. Go there first in the morning because it does get more crowded throughout the day. Because the popular rides are significantly less in wait time, I went there in July of last year, and I was waiting for at most an hour for the rides. Well, Justin, I have, thanks very much for that tip, and I have an add-on to that. Alternately, instead of going first thing in the day, you might want to consider going last in the day, because at night, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter looks fantastic. Crowds start to thin out toward the end of the day, and you can stay a little bit past the end of the day, the park closing hours, and really take in all that is Wizarding World until they really kick you out. So a good tip for anyone visiting. It is still very crowded. Certainly, we're in the summer months now, and it'll be crowded throughout the summer over there. It's doing very well for Universal, but worth attending. It's a lot of fun. Everyone else out there, send your tips into tips@InsideTheMagic.net. So now let's get to a main feature on this week's show, where in the past couple of weeks, we've been talking all about the Disneyland Resort and everything that's going on over there. And there is still plenty to share from the Disneyland Resort. A lot of excitement happening. Last week, of course, we shared the grand opening of the Little Mermaid Ariel's Undersea Adventure. Now that is done, that is open, but there is still much, much more going on at Disney California Adventure as part of the ongoing $1 billion plus improvement project. Of course, Cars Land is being built over at that park, and we'll talk more about that soon. But we really should start in talking about the future of California Adventure at the front of the park. Of course, that's the first thing everybody is going to see as you enter California Adventure, and that's a great place to start to begin to find out more about what is coming to California Adventure over the next year when the project wraps up in 2012. So to start it all, I want to actually go directly to Disneyland Resort President George Kalogridis at the recent What's Next presentation at the Disneyland Resort just a couple of weeks ago, as when he talked all about what is coming to the park's new entrance.
George Kalogridis! We can make a change. It's our generation.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome on this beautiful Southern California morning. This is a very exciting time for all of us here at the Disneyland Resort, as we are well over the halfway mark in the second largest expansion in our resort's history. As you'll hear in a few moments, we are working diligently towards our goal, our ultimate goal, of making Disneyland Resort the multi-day destination in Southern California. In addition, our progress continues to bolster the economy of Southern California. Our decision to invest so significantly in the expansion at Disney California Adventure was based chiefly on extensive guest research. We found that our guests were looking for three key elements. First, they wanted a more immersive environment. Secondly, they were in search of more family attractions. And finally, they just wanted more Disney. So while we opened 2 new great attractions during the past 2 days, we have even more to open this summer. In just a few weeks, July 1st to be exact, we'll see the opening of our newest attraction on Paradise Pier, Goofy's Sky School. Inspired by the classic Goofy how-to shorts of the 1940s and 50s, as well as the cartoon short Goofy's Glider, the theme of this coaster is a flying academy with your pal Goofy, with twists and turns and dips as Goofy tries to navigate you through the novice pilots through this new attraction. Also coming to Paradise Pier at the same time are 2 new restaurants, Boardwalk Pizza and Pasta and the Paradise Garden Grill. Themed as authentic family-owned venues, they'll feature great menus offering mouth-watering Italian and Mediterranean cuisine. And that's just the beginning, for as you know, we have a very, very big year ahead of us in 2012. As we speak, the main entrance of Disney California Adventure is in the process of getting a brand new look. This new entrance, modeled after the landmark Pan Pacific Auditorium in Los Angeles, will lead our guests directly into the park. This is an early computer rendering, which allows us to fly through the front portion of the park and along Buena Vista Street. At the end of the street, you can see the Carthay Circle Theater, a recreation of one of California's most iconic movie palaces. The Carthay Circle truly epitomizes the golden age of Hollywood. Buena Vista Street is our new thoroughfare into the park, and it ultimately sets the tone with a terrific sense of time and place. As we make our way back to the main entrance, you get a sense of the new space and of the many shops and storefronts that are all themed to the California of yesteryear. While Main Street over in Disneyland is reminiscent of where Walt Disney grew up, Buena Vista Street will give guests a sense of what Los Angeles was like when Walt Disney arrived in the early 1920s. Also included in our expansion will be the Red Car Trolley, based on the Southland's historic Pacific Electric Red Car line. It will transport guests along Hollywood Boulevard and Buena Vista Street. here's a closer look of the Carthay Circle, which was where Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs premiered back in 1937. I should mention that it will also contain an incredible new table service restaurant and lounge. So on behalf of the 21,000 cast members here at the Disneyland Resort, we can't wait to share these new experiences with you next year. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you for being here today.
And that was Disneyland Resort President George Kalogridis talking all about the changes that are coming to Disney California Adventure's entrance area. Certainly a lot of excitement to be had there. It's fun to see a park that has had not such great reputation over the years, and not enough Disney, perhaps, and really become something that is completely and absolutely Disney. It's, completely remaking what the front of the park is going to look like, and I actually wanted to find out more than what Mr. Kalogridis said there at the presentation. So after that presentation, I sat down with Imagineer Bob Weiss and California Adventure Vice President Mary Niven to chat about the reinvention of California Adventure, not only in the front of the park area, but really the entire park itself. Bob Weiss, Imagineer Bob Weiss, has worked on many Disney projects over the years. Recently, he was at the Shanghai Disneyland groundbreaking ceremony, but you might remember him as from the Imagineer presentation at Disney Hollywood Studios anniversary just a couple of years ago. He was on that panel talking about the history of Hollywood Studios and flipping through slides of early years of Hollywood Studios, of MGM Studios at the time, Disney MGM Studios, and he came across a slide of the Chinese theater, which at the time was not blocked by the Sorcerer Hat. And when that slide came up, Bob Weiss made the comment, "And this is my favorite view of the Chinese theater. You can't get this view anymore. You may be aware of that, but I hope we will get this view again sometime soon." And, of course, that got big applause and cheers from the fans in the audience. Now, Sorcerer Hat is still there at Hollywood Studios, but that's just the type of guy Bob Weiss is. He wasn't necessarily saying it was going away, but that, in his own opinion, it was better before the Sorcerer Hat was there. Of course, he has been one of the Imagineers behind the makeover of Disney California Adventure, and as such, he was definitely the right person, along with Disney California Adventure VP Mary Niven, to talk to. And so we started by talking about just basically why now make all of these changes, and what are they going to mean to California Adventure, and really what is it about bringing all this new kind of Disney life to the park. And so here is what he had to say.
There were three, kind of in summary, there were three key things that we grew out of the first few years of operation into a lot of talking to guests and perceiving guests. One, to connect it stronger to Disney by bringing very strong Disney properties in, like Mermaid and Cars, and even the things that were more generic in Paradise Pier, to make the Fun Wheel Mickey, and to make the Mulholland Madness Goofy's Flight School, and everything we're doing, we're trying to really more strongly connect to Disney. The second thing was more family, more breadth of family experiences, which Mermaid certainly is right in the middle of that, so is Cars. And the third thing, again, a little less tangible, is that guests tell us they come to Disney to escape to an immersive world, to go somewhere that's not in today or in their daily life. So things like the new main entrance that we're doing that takes you to Los Angeles in the 1920s, or even the immersive world of, the amazing immersive world of Cars, are places that are going to completely envelop you in another time, another place, and that's what has worked for years at Disneyland, is that sense that you are immersed in a place. So all three of those we're kind of going at all the time.
You feel like that California Adventure is now becoming Hollywood Studios West? I mean, the entrance is obviously going to be nearly the same as Florida. Do you think there's enough, is it like a Magic Kingdom Disneyland comparison now?
It's not really. Hollywood isn't as strong in this main entrance as as Los Angeles in that time period, and it's an earlier time period than Disney Hollywood Studios was. So there's a scale similarity, but this is going to feel much more like old LA, where in Florida it's old Hollywood. It is going to be quite a different. When you see it, it's going to be probably a little more subdued color-wise, where the deco in Florida is a lot brighter and that kind of thing. So it is going to have a different feeling. And we still believe that Hollywood is the street that exists that takes you down to the Aladdin attraction, and then the little studio piece where monsters and those things are. But that's our portion, which is more the Hollywood studio. This is really feeling like more like you're not in a back lot, you're really in an immersed part of Los Angeles in the 20s.
So we're not necessarily going to see the streetmosphere coming out and making a movie, that sort of thing, in those areas.
Well, you may see streetmosphere, but they may not be making.
It won't be
Right.
making
They'll
a
be
movie.
living that. They'll be living that time period.
Yeah, bringing to life the 1920s, 1930s Los
And you'll
Angeles.
see a lot of entertainment out
Yeah.
there.
So there you go. That was Imagineer Bob Weiss and DCA VP Mary Niven talking all about the future of that park and really the way that they're going to integrate more Disney into California Adventure. Certainly a lot of changes going on in the park. And not only to the entrance, but specifically we're talking about that entrance right now, and it's fun to think about what it's going to look like and be like walking into the park. Of course, it's going to have a very similar entrance area to Disney Hollywood Studios. In fact, the turnstile area is going to look nearly identical to that park. However, once you move past that, it's going to become, rather than, as Bob Weiss just said there, and this is what I was curious about, is it becoming Disney Hollywood Studios California version? But no, it is not becoming that. While there are many of the same attractions, Tower of Terror, Muppet Vision, and the like, really it's more about Los Angeles, and Los Angeles from decades ago when Walt Disney stepped foot into that state, bringing everything that we knew to become eventually Disney there. While there is a Hollywood portion, the Hollywood Pictures backlot of California Adventure, there's a really important distinction there that needs to be made. That the main area, the Buena Vista Park, when you first step into it, is not Hollywood. It's just Los Angeles, which is a bit different. And, in the grand history of the glitz and the glamour of Hollywood, there definitely is something more to that experience than just Hollywood. And it'll be fun to see what Disney comes up with, I asked about Streetmosphere there, what kind of characters they come up with that'll be roaming around, kind of just living, if you will, in that area. To really get all of that feeling of being in early 1900s, well, maybe not quite that far back, but 30s, 40s Hollywood. Or not Hollywood, Los Angeles. See, I'm even making that confusion. To see what the difference is there, and to see Disney's version of that. It won't necessarily be authentic. Of course, Disney is not in the business of recreating real-life places, but rather sort of a fantasy, idealized version of that. And what they have done for Hollywood at Hollywood Studios, then Disney MGM Studios years ago, is really create an exceptionally enjoyable version of the fantasy world of Hollywood. When you step into Disney's Hollywood Studios now, you get what Hollywood should be. You don't get the crazy people wandering around in the Chinese theater like really happens out at the real Chinese theater, but rather you get the fun Disney version of Hollywood, the colorful, vibrant movie-making version, and that's the type of Los Angeles that they're going to bring to California Adventure. Should be a whole lot of fun. I'm actually really, really excited to see how that whole entrance area shapes up. It's one of those things that's not a specific attraction, so it's not, it's easy to overlook that area of the park. You can focus on Cars Land, you can focus on World of Color, you can focus on The Little Mermaid. Those are attractions. But the entrance area is just as important. It really sets the stage much in the same way that the Town Square and Main Street sets the stage for Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom. This is now going to be the Main Street of California Adventure, and I'm really looking forward to all of it. So a little bit more from Disneyland here this week, and we'll have much, much more in the coming weeks as we talk about the new Soundsational Parade and have some interviews related to that, and over to the Disneyland Hotel, and even beyond the Disneyland Resort to Disney Cruise Line and beyond. So much more to share in the coming weeks. And Skipper Ben is back on the show this week, but before we get to him, I do want to put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. Of course, Lanyard Lab is the place you want to go if you have something to promote. That is, we make custom lanyards, and we can put the name of a business or a convention or a church or a school or any of that onto custom lanyards. We can use your logo and your text, and certainly plenty of options available there. So find us over at lanyardlab.com. In fact, once you go there, you can fill out our free price quote request form, and there you can submit to us all of your ideas. We'll send you back with a price quote and a proof showing you exactly what the lanyards will look like, and from there you can just order online, easy as that, or you can submit any changes, and it's all very easy. So check it out over at lanyardlab.com. And now it is time to head on over to Mr. Skipper Ben, who is going to try to make more appearances here on the show in the coming weeks and months. He's had a very, very busy time recently. A lot of things going on in his life as well as mine, but mine have all been Disney related. His have all been not Disney related, and as such, he hasn't had a whole lot of time to record for the show. If any of you are new viewers out there, new listeners out there, you might not know Skipper Ben as well. He's a former Jungle Cruise skipper, amongst other duties out here at Walt Disney World. He was on the college program for quite a while, and he's been a regular co-host on Inside the Magic for a number of years now, in fact, almost since the beginning of the show. But if you've been tuning in within the last couple of months, you're probably not aware of him, and you're probably wondering, hey, who's this Skipper Ben guy? Well, that's where he got his name. He was a Jungle Cruise skipper and has kind of still embodies that spirit of Disney and Jungle Cruise in him, even though he is no longer employed by the Walt Disney Company. Instead, he just comments on it all with us here on Inside the Magic. So with all of that said, let's go on over to Skipper Ben for this week's segment that he calls Cruising the World.
Hello everyone, Skipper Ben here, and it's time for another edition of Cruising the World. Well, first off, thank you to everyone who's been understanding on me not being on the show off and on for the last several months. As you know, I work in sports here in Dallas, and I don't know, my team, the Dallas Mavericks, little basketball team y'all might have heard of, won the NBA championship. So been working very hard, very long hours, has kept me away from being online doing the podcast quite a bit lately, but it's over. The hard work's paid off. We're the champions of the world, baby. Sorry, all you Miami Heat fans out there. But we're back now and, getting on a more regular schedule. And actually, kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the championships and, the catchphrase of, whenever the MVP or the winner of the game does the commercial right after game. It's pretty cool because they do actually make their visits out there to the parks. And, right now they've really only kept it to Super Bowl winners and, oddly enough, American Idol winners. Well, I guess really not oddly enough since they get to come out there and perform at the attraction. So they didn't do one after the basketball finals this time, but on two of my times out there in the parks, I actually got to experience the person saying, I'm going to Disney World, coming to the attractions. And one was on a time while I was working there. The other time was on a visit that we just so happened to be lucky out there. So the first one that happened while I was working out there was in the summer of '99 when I was over at the Jungle Cruise. And I remember getting a call in the afternoon. I didn't personally get the call, but we got a call over at the attraction that we had a VIP on his way over, and we needed to straighten up the backstage area. So then we get the call at the front desk, and of course we scramble to the back and we start straightening everything up and clean everything in our little tent break area that the VIP would walk by before he gets on the boat. But at the time, nobody told us anything about who it was or what was going on. And so we do our job, we get it all ready, and we're all standing around waiting around to see who this person is going to be. And I remember being in the back break area, and off in the distance coming up from the tunnels underground, walking towards over to the Jungle Cruise, was Super Bowl winning quarterback of that year, Kurt Warner of the St. Louis Rams. Just a few months prior, he had won the Super Bowl, beating Tennessee in a very epic Super Bowl, one of the greatest of all time. And after the Super Bowl, he did the whole "I'm going to Disney World" and everything. And while he didn't come out a week later, he came out several months later, and it just so happens to be that I was lucky to be out there at that time and got to see him come through the VIP section and do it. And of course, they kind of carted him around all the parks. He went around to all the attractions, but he did take the VIP scenic route to go through everything. Now, the other time I was out there was during a visit, and we got really lucky on this one. This was really cool. It was back in 2004. Lisa and I were making one of our winter, pre-winter visits during the Food and Wine Festival, and we just completely lucked into this. Whenever I go on vacation out there, unless it's really a playoff game or Dallas Cowboys a game, I try to ignore sports as much as possible and enjoy the parks. So the World Series was going on, and neither one of my teams was playing in it, so didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to the series at all. Just kind of went about our business, had some fun. So we really lucked into it because on the day that this happened, we just so happened to be at the Magic Kingdom. Did not plan this out whatsoever, but we get there and we're walking around the parks, and there's kind of a buzz going on, and we're like, what's the deal? And we start seeing, it's before 3 o'clock. It's not the 3 o'clock parade set up just yet. It's earlier in the afternoon. We start seeing the barricades lining up along the streets for the exact parade route. And we're like, this is okay. Something's up, because this isn't planned. There's nothing, nobody handing out, in the park maps, no announcements, anything. So, we're kind of just buzzing through, trying to see what's going on. Didn't really ask anybody. I do remember the first time that we saw any of this stuff was we were over in Frontierland, and we just decided to go over to Main Street, see if there's anything else going on. And of course, they were setting up Main Street the same way. But when we walked on Main Street, we did look at the banners that were hanging off the light posts on both sides of the street, and they weren't the normal banners whatsoever. They were Boston Red Sox banners. That's right, we were at the Magic Kingdom the day that Pedro Martinez and David Ortiz were doing their parade after winning the World Series, the first Red Sox World Series in God knows how many years, after beating the St. Louis Cardinals that year. This was literally days after the World Series, so big buzz was going around. There were a lot of Red Sox fans in the park, and we lined up on the side of the street, and they did do a parade the whole way through, little convertible cars, and there was Big Papi, there was Pedro. They started over in Frontierland and did the loop and came down Main Street. And when they got to the end of Main Street, they went up to the top of the train station and did a whole lot of press up there, a lot of interviews, things like that. They turned around, they were waving to the fans down below at the bottom of the train station, and they were doing autographs, throwing little, baseball caps and baseballs up and down to each other. It was really cool. They were having a blast. You could tell that, you can tell when you watch the commercials that this is something that these athletes really enjoy. It's something that they've wanted to do since they were, young and saw their heroes doing these Disney commercials. So when they get to do it, and then when they get to come out to the parks and really take it in and enjoy it and sharing the fun with all the guests that are out there, it's a really, really cool experience. So it's something that if you're planning a trip around any of the big championships, especially now, like I said, Super Bowl, or if you're going to be there around the time that the American Idol final is, it's a good time to visit that attraction. Do always check in, though, with the parks, with guest relations, and see if those guests are coming in at any point during your visit. Sometimes they'll give you the information, sometimes they won't. You just kind of have to be lucky. Most of the time they're going to do any of these events at the Magic Kingdom, though, so that's a good spot to be in case they do a parade or any of that kind of stuff. But it is cool that, you need to keep your eyes out, because when they do those commercials, they really mean it. They do end up going on those trips up to Walt Disney World, and, it's a fun little time that you might spot your own little celebrity while you're out there on your trip. So we're going to keep things short and sweet this week as I ease my way back into this normal podcast mode. Gotta tell you, I'm absolutely worn out from parades and parties and sports and all that myself. I gotta decompress a little bit, but it's always fun to relax while talking Disney. That is for sure, and that's something that we're gonna get going a lot more here on Cruising the World. But until then, this is Skipper Ben saying, back to you, Ricky.
Thanks very much, Skipper Ben. Good to have you in just a normal Kurtz in the World segment. Fun to hear about, all of the celebrities that say, I'm going to Disney World, and then, as you said, they actually do. It's not just a commercial. It's not just for fun. Whenever a celebrity does exclaim that, be it an American Idol winner or Super Bowl winner, they indeed make it to Disney World. In fact, Kurt Warner, who you mentioned earlier, apparently has made it an annual or almost annual occurrence to not only come back to Disney World, but also work with I think it's Make-A-Wish Kids or another charity to not only bring himself and his family to Walt Disney World, but also help out and meet with a lot of other kids and really have a fun celebrity-filled time at the Magic Kingdom and throughout Walt Disney World. So definitely a lot of fun to be had there. It's more than just sports and celebrity and celebration and parades. It's also a chance for others to join in as well. But of course, the celebrity and the parades and all of that is fun to be there as well, especially if you are a sports fan and your team wins. So always good to be on the lookout for those occasions when somebody shouts, I'm going to Disney World. You'll probably want to go there a couple of days later to the Magic Kingdom. Lately, it's been a cavalcade, a motorcade down Main Street, USA, and that's when you could see them. Of course, Hollywood Studios is for the American Idol winners, and we talked about the most recent winner a couple of weeks ago here on the show and his journey to the parks. So again, welcome back to the show. Hopefully we'll be hearing more from you, Ben, in the coming weeks, and more from Kurtz in the World.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky. Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic listener feedback.
And we have a whole lot of listener feedback. I have lots of emails that I've been accumulating over the last few weeks because we skipped listener feedback for a number of weeks as we were in the middle of all of the excitement that has been going on throughout Walt Disney World and Disneyland. So here we are. We're going to try to do some catch-up on listener feedback, and then perhaps we'll see if we have any time for some live Q&A with those who are in the chat room at insidethemagic.net/live. So any of you who are watching and listening out there, get your questions ready. I'll try to throw in a few extra questions at the end of the listener feedback section in just a little bit. But first, we are going to dive into the emails. First up, from Billy, who writes, love the podcast, listen all the time, it gets me through work. I have two questions for you. I'll be at Disney January 8th through 15th. First question, will the Osborne lights still be up and be able to be seen? And second question, besides the Magic Kingdom rope drop event, characters coming in on the train, do any other parks do a rope drop that I should see? Hey Billy, thanks very much for that email. I'm glad you enjoy the show, and two very good questions. First up, the Osborne lights likely will not be up by the time you get here January 8th. Usually it's a couple of days into January when all of the Christmas everything and holiday everything around Walt Disney World comes down. So highly unlikely that you'll be able to see the Osborne lights at Hollywood Studios on January 8th through 15th. As far as rope drop, Epcot does do a rope drop as well. It's not quite as monumental and exciting as the one at the Magic Kingdom, but you'll definitely see some characters. There's usually a family of the day chosen. Perhaps they'll bring out a test track car for them to drive off in, and some fun things can go on at the Epcot rope drop as well. You know, I have been to the Magic Kingdom rope drop. I've been to Epcot rope drop, and I've never. No, I take that back. I have been to Hollywood Studios once at the morning, and there was a rope drop there as well with some of the Streetmosphere characters. And Animal Kingdom, I'm not too sure. I know there are characters out in the morning at Animal Kingdom, out in front, out in the entry before you get to the turnstiles. Even you can meet some characters there. So really, all four parks, if you get there in the morning early enough, you are sure to have some sort of entertainment to enjoy. Next, an email from Maggie, who writes, while on the website imdb.com, the Internet Movie Database, I found a new movie that Pixar is making that I had not heard of before. I'm pretty sure you haven't mentioned it. The movie is called Brave. It says that it is being made now, and they have 4 pictures for the movie. The summary is a Scottish princess, Merida, defies her parents by perusing an interest in archery, but inadvertently jeopardizes her father's kingdom in the process. A very different story than Pixar usually does, but have no doubt that it will be great. thought you and the other listeners would want to know. Well, Maggie, definitely Brave is certainly in the works, and if I haven't mentioned it on the show, I'd be surprised. Brave is going to be Pixar's first fairy tale movie, and there's only a little bit of artwork out there right now for Brave. I think even the first image of the main character as she'll appear in the film recently came out, I believe. But Brave is definitely in the works, coming from Pixar, and it should be a lot of fun. Next up, here's kind of an amusing email from Daryl, who writes, I just saw a video on YouTube from Disney Parks about the mural that was painted in the Little Mermaid attraction at California Adventure. You might have already seen it, but I thought I'd share with you. On the mural, they painted the ride building for the Disney World ride. Does that mean they might paint the California Adventure ride building on the Disney World mural, if there is one? Well, Daryl, thanks very much for that email. Of course, you're talking about a video that showcased the artistic talents of Larry Nicolai, who we actually talked to last week here on the show about the Little Mermaid ride. He was one of the lead Imagineers on the project, and he himself painted the mural that is the huge mural, 80-foot long mural at the Little Mermaid Ariel's Undersea Adventure. Of course, he didn't paint the big version himself. He painted a scaled-down version in his garage, actually, and then they replicated that version in the attraction. And he said he did go in and put a few finishing touches on that one, but really it was up to other artists to create the one there, to replicate what he had painted in a smaller scale. As far as you saying that they painted the ride building for Disney World's Little Mermaid attraction in the California Adventure version, well, that's actually Prince Eric's castle from the film, and that's what the ride building out here in Florida for the Little Mermaid ride in Fantasyland when it opens is going to look like, whereas the one out in California, as you heard Larry Nicolai explain last week on the show, it's more themed to the Paradise Pier area. They couldn't just stick a random castle there. It wouldn't have made any sense as far as the theme of that whole area at California Adventure. But the one out here, of course, will be in Fantasyland, and just about anything goes when it comes to Fantasyland. And so that is why we will be getting Prince Eric's castle facade for the Little Mermaid attraction out here, and I highly doubt they're going to paint the California Adventure ride building on our mural. Next up, here's a fun email from Carrie, who writes with the subject line, Sobe Pineapple Water, Dole Whip. And Carrie continues to say, I just bought this new pineapple-flavored Sobe water today, and I will tell you that it not only tastes like pineapple, it really, really tastes like a Dole Whip. It has that very distinct flavor. Amazing. Carrie, thanks very much for letting me know about that. I have not tried the Sobe pineapple water yet, but if it tastes like a Dole Whip, I'm going to have to give it a shot. Perhaps somebody else out there could give it a try and compare it directly to a Dole Whip as well. Certainly, Dole Whip's not available everywhere, and very much a staple of visiting the Magic Kingdom or Disneyland, and if you can get that flavor elsewhere, that is a good thing. Rick from Texas writes in, he is from UnitedStatesOfGeekdom.com, and Rick writes, first time writing in, been listening to your show for about 4 years now. My wife and I are taking our 3-year-old son to Walt Disney World, and we are taking a different approach in arriving from Fort Worth, Texas. We've decided to fly into Tampa, stay the night, and then drive in the morning to the World. That said, I'd like to ask a few questions. 1, are there any toll charges between Tampa and Lake Buena Vista that we need to be prepared for? 2, we are planning a character breakfast at several places, including Chef Mickey's. Is parking available at the Contemporary, or is it preferable that we park at the TTC? 3, we might have a need for a stroller at the parks, and we also wanted to know if we could rent the stroller once per day per park, or if there's something that we can do to rent a stroller for the entire week that we're there. And finally, are we able to use table service meals more than once in a day? We have the regular dining plan, and because we are also going to Universal during our trip, we will not be able to use the table service on every single day of the trip. Well, Rick, let me see if I can answer all these questions for you. Number 1, between Tampa and the Lake Buena Vista area, the best route to take, let's see, well, so you said you're flying into Tampa, staying the night. So you're going to want to hop on I-4, definitely. You'll probably might have to take 75, depending on where in Tampa you are, just to get to I-4. And then I-4 is toll-free, so you don't have to worry about any tolls there. From I-4, the most direct route, well, you can take I-4 all the way to the downtown Disney area. Get off right there, or take, some back roads roads. There'll certainly be signs to Disney World. You can take I-4 the whole way, not pay any tolls. If you want to cut off a little bit of time, you could hang on to the 429 North. That is a toll road, but you won't have to pay much, if anything, because you'll only be on that road for a few minutes, and that'll take you right onto Disney property as well. We'll save you just a little bit of time over I-4. So either way, we'll get you there. If you don't want to pay any tolls at all, I-4 is definitely the way to go. Number 2, there is most definitely parking at the Contemporary available if you are dining at Chef Mickey's. Just tell them when you get to the security gate that is what you are doing, and they'll direct you to park, and there is no problem with doing that whatsoever. If you park at the Transportation and Ticket Center, it might be an advantage for you because then you could just hop the monorail from the Contemporary over to whatever park you're going to visit after breakfast, probably the Magic Kingdom. But otherwise, you could... technically, you could leave your car at the Contemporary and monorail over to the Magic Kingdom. You had a legitimate reason for being at the hotel, though they don't really encourage people to park there and then move over to the parks with leaving your car there. So, but yes, you can definitely park there. Number 3, I can't really answer. I'm not familiar with strollers at the parks. I've never had a reason to rent one myself. So I'm going to have to defer that question. Perhaps somebody in the chat room out there right now, or if not, somebody later can email me and let me know about renting strollers. Do you have to rent them every single day, or can you rent a stroller for an entire week of being there? I'm not sure of that answer. I'll keep watching the chat room to see if anyone has that answer. Number 4, are you able to use table service meals more than once a day? Again, dining plan, not my strong point. I'm pretty sure you can apply dining plan points whenever throughout the day. As long as you apply them, then you're good to go. But I'm not 100% sure on that because I've never had a reason to purchase into the dining plan as I am a local out here at Walt Disney World. So again, I throw it out to the chat room or any listeners out there to let me know if table service meals on the dining plan can be used more than once. And if anyone mentions that, then I will mention it here. Otherwise, somebody email me. Somebody in the chat room said that you can rent strollers. So hopefully that is correct. And we'll get back to the dining plan at some point. Thanks very much. Yes, somebody actually just said dining plan gives you a certain number of snacks, quick service, and table services per stay, but not necessarily per day. So you can do every day for strollers, and every day for strollers is your answer. And table service is per stay, so you can use them at your leisure. You could burn all of your sit-down dinners in one day, as AZ Dizfan in the chat room says. So there are your answers. Thanks very much to the chat room for some quick responses to the things that I don't know. Let's move on. John in the UK writes in and says, I was wondering if I had missed any announcement about the summer program for Walt Disney World. I thought I had read somewhere about the return of Summer Night-tastic in California, but that is the extent. Is the extent of Florida activity going to be the Magic Memories and You show? Do you think there will be a repeat of the Tower of Terror makeover, which we all know you loved so much? And is there anything that is unique to the summer season that we should not miss? My 9-year-old son would like to know if the Toronto is still doing the rounds too. Any info would be great as we come to Florida on July 16th for the first trip to the world since 1998. Top podcast, Ricky. Pip, pip. And John, thanks very much for that email. I didn't know people in the UK actually wrote or said pip pip. I thought that was just one of those stereotypical things, but you wrote it, so there we go. But anyway, to answer your questions, Disney has not announced anything specific for the summer out here at Walt Disney World. There's no Summer Night-tastic this year, as far as I know. There's no special fireworks show at the Magic Kingdom. There is, as you said, the Magic Memories and You Castle Projection Show over at the Magic Kingdom. And that's about it. There's not really any other special summer entertainment to be found that's under a theme like Summer Night-tastic. There is the Soundsational Summer going on at Disneyland, as you said, but that's Disneyland, not Walt Disney World. So no, the Tower of Terror makeover, thankfully, is not coming back. And nothing else. We got Main Street Electrical Parade is still here, though, so you can enjoy that as well. The Toronto Rail, to answer your son's question, is still making its way around the lines, the monorail lines, so you can enjoy that. And I guess that's it. That was all your questions. Thanks very much for that email. next up, an email from Tina, who writes, I'm writing in a response to an email that you read on June 12th, last week, from Scotty, who will be in Disney for the 4th of July. My husband and I went to Disney for the 4th of July a few years ago and saw the Magic Kingdom fireworks from the beach at the Polynesian. You not only get what seemed to us like an extended fireworks show, but there's also a patriotic parade of lights on the Seven Seas Lagoon, which is in time to the music accompanying the fireworks show. My suggestion is to either take the bus from downtown Disney or take the monorail, because you cannot park on property unless you're staying at the hotel. Also, you'll want to get there fairly early, maybe grab dinner at Kona or Ohana, reservations needed, so you can grab a good seat for the show because it does fill up fast. The only drawback to the entire night was that it took us about 2 hours to get back to downtown Disney, which is where we parked. Tina, great suggestion there. I should have mentioned that last time when we were talking about the 4th of July festivities. Certainly watching them from the Polynesian beach, they pipe in the music, you can enjoy it, you can see kind of the panoramic view, and with a fireworks show like they put on for 4th of July, would look really, really stunning. And then add to that what you said, the parade of lights going across the Seven Seas Lagoon, it's just even more to enjoy. And if you dine at Ohana that night, it really will make for a perfect night. And as you said, it is very important that you cannot park at that hotel that night unless you're staying there. Disney is very careful and restrictive on July 4th and New Year's and Christmas and all those busy days where if you don't have a reservation at the hotel, if you don't have a room there and you don't have a really specific reason to be there, then they're not going to let you in the park because it fills up very quickly. So, Tina, thanks very much for all of that. Moving on with some more listener feedback. Another email, this one from Lizzie, who writes, this is actually going way back to the Great Disney Scavenger Hunt from a few weeks ago. Lizzie writes, my mom told me that you were looking for the name of the short on the marquee in Spaceship Earth. The answer would be the band concert. Well, Lizzie, thanks very much for that answer. Actually, I did not know the answer until you finally messaged me. That is one of the questions that we did not get correct on the Great Disney Scavenger Hunt, and that's one of the questions that had we gotten, we would have gotten perhaps second place or first place, but instead we were third, which we're happy with, and still waiting for the prizes to arrive in the mail. It is now June 19th, and they said we'd have them by July, so running out of time here, but thanks very much for letting me know the answer to the question we couldn't figure out. Alicia writes in and says, it's me, the one who loves the show. Do you know or have you heard of any approximate dates for when the Snow White ride will close in Fantasyland? Also, do you know if the current Dumbo ride will remain open until the new Dumbo is open, or will there be a period of time where we have no Dumbo? Alicia, two very, very good questions related to the Fantasyland expansion at the Magic Kingdom out here at Walt Disney World. Unfortunately, Disney has not announced a closure date for Snow White's Scary Adventures. It is definitely closing to make way for the new Princess Meet and Greet area. However, Disney hasn't said exactly when that will happen. I'm sure Disney will at some point. Perhaps they'll have some sort of special event, maybe a D23 event. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But we'll keep you posted once Disney does make that announcement. As far as the Dumbo ride, again, Disney hasn't really made any specific announcements regarding any closures or opening dates for the new Fantasyland. So will we have Dumbo in one area until the Double Dumbo opens in Storybook Circus? It's unlikely, because it seems like Disney's really moving from one area of Fantasyland to the other. If I had to guess, I would say the Be Our Guest restaurant and the Little Mermaid ride are going to open before Storybook Circus. Perhaps when those open, that's when they'll take the time to close down the current Dumbo and you know, because they have to make over that whole area where Dumbo is now into the lead up to Beast Castle and the Be Our Guest restaurant and the whole Beauty and the Beast Village and all of that. So Dumbo's got to close at some point to be made over into that. If it'll happen at the same time as everything from Storybook Circus, I don't know. They very well may just move the existing Dumbo carousel from Fantasyland now over to the new one and then just add another one and retheme it, redecorate it. So we'll just have to wait and see how that's going to work. Unfortunately, I don't have any answers for you right now. West Coast Brian writes in and said, you keep talking about a 220-minute line for Disneyland Star Tours on June 3rd. So I'm assuming you never saw it at 240 minutes. I still want to know who is willing to stand in line for 4 hours. Well, Brian, that's insane. That I saw it at 225 minutes was the longest when I was out there a couple of weekends ago on opening weekend for Star Tours at Disneyland. I saw it at 225-minute wait. And apparently, according to you, it was at 230 40 minutes at one point, which is a very, very long wait. I definitely would not stand in line that long for any attraction, let alone Star Tours, but a lot of people did. In fact, hundreds of people did, and hopefully they had a good time out of it. Here's a really interesting question that I'm not sure I have 100% of an answer to. Bert writes in and says, just curious, any idea who writes the background music for Tomorrowland, Innoventions, or any other areas? I know, or does Disney have a stable of house writers, or do they farm it out? We were discussing the subject with a few friends this past week, and I was at a loss for an answer. Also, just listen to show 321. You have not lived until you've spent an hour, a lifetime, in the magical world of Barbie. The show was presented in the amphitheater across from the American Adventure at Epcot, and because it made our 11-year-old daughter very happy, in typical Disney style, there wasn't a detail missing. Ken Skipper and 20 other friends filled the stage along with the infamous Barbie Mobile and Barbie's submarine, if you can believe that. And after 20 years, I still have that horrid song in my head, such is the price I pay for being a good Disney parent. Bert, I'm glad I missed Barbie at Epcot. Definitely not a fun show as far as I'm concerned, but if it made your 11-year-old daughter very happy, then I suppose that's what it was for. Not exactly with the Epcot theme, but that aside, to answer your question about the background music for around the Disney parks, Tomorrowland, Innoventions, etc., I know a lot of those songs are actually just regular old songs that you would find from artists. They're on their various albums. Disney's pulled them in as you know, just great songs to use in the parks. However, there are songs that are written specifically for Disney. Whether or not Disney has a stable of house writers, as you put it, I couldn't say that. I'm sure Disney does employ plenty of really excellent musicians, whether they're contract or always there to write music for the parks. I couldn't say for sure. I know music changes. The Tomorrowland loop, for example, changed from the 90s to what it is today and replaced it with all new music. So if anyone out there knows exactly where that type of music comes from, the music that's not on artists' other albums that is just written from Disney, if Disney's got a staff of musicians or composers and that kind of thing, or if they just contract people. Most likely they're contracted. Anyway, email me and let me know. Let's move on to an email from Maggie, who writes, I have very different questions but are relevant to Disney. My first question is, where are some good locations throughout Walt Disney World, not in the park, sadly enough, to take some professional pictures? My family and I are going to Fort Wilderness Lodge over in the summer and are going to have some professional photos done at Disney. The only problem is that we have no idea where we can take some great pictures. We would love to hear any locations or ideas. The second question is, does anyone know where the whereabouts, the Mary Poppins cameo brooch necklace? I have literally watched Mary Poppins over 100,000 times since I was a baby, watched it recently, and saw that Julie Andrews wears this beautiful cameo brooch necklace in the scene where she gives Michael and Jane a spoonful of medicine, no pun intended, right before she sings Stay Awake. I have looked all over online and have found nothing of it except one picture of Julie Andrews wearing the necklace in the movie. If anyone knows about what happened to it or where it is, I would be more than happy to know what happened to it. Well, Maggie, two questions that are very different, as you said, but still very interesting. Let me do the Mary Poppins one first. I have no idea. None whatsoever. If anyone out there has any idea about the Mary Poppins cameo brooch, send me an email, ricky@insidethemagic.net, and I'll be happy to share that with Maggie in the future. As far as taking pictures around Walt Disney World, certainly plenty of places outside the parks that are just gorgeous for taking professional pictures. I'm not sure if you want them to be Disney related or not clear from your email, but assuming that you don't, assuming you just want really beautiful professional photos done at Disney, I would say throughout all of the resorts would be your best bet. Grand Floridian has some really gorgeous grounds to wander through. Certainly, you said you're going to the Fort Wilderness Lodge. You can definitely explore there, get a more naturey feel, certainly when walking through many of their nature trails and back sort of woodsy areas throughout that resort. And, I would say that would be the first thing that comes to mind for me. And Saratoga Springs is beautiful. Would definitely make some excellent photos there. You can get in the background a lot of the waterways that are throughout there. Just a whole lot of whole lot that you could really take photos there. Again, another great question for listeners out there. I'm sure there are many listeners who have taken photos of yourselves, professional type photos, posed photos around Walt Disney World, not in the parks. Email me to ricky@insidethemagic.net. I'd love to hear your ideas about where is a good spot to take such pictures. All right, looking ahead, we still have so many emails to go, just not nearly enough time to include them all here. I'm just going to scan through it real quick and see if there are any that are absolutely needing to be mentioned this week versus a few further weeks when there is there'll be more time to talk about these as we move along. I see just one that I should probably mention here real quick, and this email comes in from Jeremy. Actually, it was a message on Facebook where he writes, "This week's episode of Hollywood Treasures on Sci-Fi has an original hand-painted Parasol Girl stretching room portrait from the Haunted Mansion. It's pretty amazing." Jeremy, definitely thank you very much for reminding me of that. I had been completely forgetting to watch Hollywood Treasure until you wrote me that message, and I went back and caught up on a lot of the episodes on Sci-Fi, recorded them on the old DVR and all of that because they are repeated quite often. But Hollywood Treasure, of course, is the host of that show. The main star of that reality show is Joe Madalena, who we had on the show a few weeks ago talking about the Profiles in History Hollywood auction, where they were auctioning off that stretching portrait and many, many Disney items. The auction went really well, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for everything. You can go back to just search the website insidethemagic.net for Profiles in History to find that interview with Joe Madalena. Actually, they featured that show over on the Profiles in History website as well, so you can check it out there. But the Hollywood Treasures show is a whole lot of fun on Sci-Fi, and definitely you want to catch that episode with the Haunted Mansion original stretching room portrait, which went for tens of thousands of dollars. And to answer somebody's question in the chat room about the Walt Disney letter, I don't remember off the top of my head how much it went for. You can go to the Profiles in History website to see all of the results of that auction and how much everything went for. But that Walt Disney letter, the one from him to Ub Iwerks, basically inviting him to come out to California to start all that is Disney, went for, I believe it was well over $100,000. So a whole lot of money. Definitely head on over to their site to see all of those prices. Okay, so we are going to, as I said, I have a whole lot of emails here and more than I can include this week as we're an hour and 20 minutes into the show. We've already done 20 minutes of listener feedback, and I'd like to start to wrap things up here. So if anyone in the live chat room has any questions for me, go ahead and ask them now, or you'll have to hold it until a future week. So in the meantime, while I wait for any questions to come in from the chat room, maybe I'll read one more email. Here's another one actually from West Coast Brian once again, and this email writes, I just noticed that Google Earth has updated its Disneyland map again to March 8th of 2011. There you can see Critter Country closed for refurbishment, construction walls around Star Tours at Disneyland, and the Star Trader, and the California sign is gone in front of California Adventure with the new entrance being built, and the show building that looks like for the new Cars ride looks finished on the outside. The outside track is still in pieces. Brian, it is, thanks for that email. It is always fun to see the progress of Disney parks from an aerial view, and to watch it unfold on Google Earth or Google Maps is a good journey through recent history, because it's not always up to date on current. It's always a couple of months behind. As you said, the most recent update was March 8th, which is a few months old now, and it's fun to look at where construction is now versus where it is, where it was just a few months ago. So thanks very much for that email, and that was definitely enough time for a few questions to come in the old chat room here. Let's check it and see. Searching for Nemo writes, in your opinion, what's the best part and the most disappointing part of the new Little Mermaid ride? Great question. The best part, in my opinion, of the new Little Mermaid ride is the Ursula animatronic. I wish the ride would just stop there and you could watch the whole thing. That scene is amazing. The animatronic is huge and smooth and fluid, and all the motions are just fantastic, and the song is great, and it's blacklight, and it just feels like a Disney dark ride, except with today's technology. I just love that scene. I'd say the most disappointing part of the Little Mermaid ride is that it wraps up so quickly. It completely skips the whole massive Ursula battle. I would have loved to have seen that impressive Ursula being followed up with an even huger, is that a word? Even larger Ursula, maybe not an animatronic, but even just a surprise, lightning crash, and you see a giant Ursula, and she's, does that whole whole finale, big, ending that should have been there, and it just basically skips over all of that, which I can understand a number of reasons for doing that. Could be too scary, could be too expensive, could be too big, could be too any number of reasons why they just wanted to wrap it up with a fun ending. I would say being too scary would definitely be the biggest reason. It is a kid's ride after all, and many kids come out of Snow White's Scary Adventures crying, so you wouldn't want kids to come out of the Little Mermaid ride crying, but for me as an adult, I would have loved to have seen something like that. But overall, I really like the Little Mermaid ride. I wouldn't call any part of it terribly disappointing. Let's see, another question from the chat room. What else do we have? Do I like the Aladdin musical? Absolutely. I'm glad that Disney announced quite a number of months ago that they were not going to be replacing the Aladdin musical at California Adventure with the Toy Story musical, like they had once said. It is going to be the Aladdin musical, and they're putting the Aladdin musical on the Disney Fantasy with some updates to it, which I really look forward to seeing one day. And I'm a big fan. I do like that musical a whole lot. That question was from James in the chat room. Alex Rivera asks, what is your favorite non-Disney theme park? Good question. That jumps all over the place. It depends on what type of mood I'm in. I will say, I'd say Universal Studios Florida probably used to be my favorite when it had Back to the Future ride, which I loved, and the old Ghostbusters show I loved. I still love Terminator 2 3D, one of my favorite theme park attractions because I'm a huge fan of that movie. But with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is really, really impressive at Islands of Adventure. So it's kind of a toss-up between the two because I've got a lot of memories from Universal Studios, and then the new the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is great. So one of those two, I would say, is definitely my favorite non-Disney park. Ross in the chat room asks, what is the official opening of the new Fantasyland, if no date, your opinion? It's really hard to pinpoint anything there. Disney has said it will open in phases, so we're not going to have a big grand opening for all of the new Fantasyland. Instead, we're going to have, a little bit open here, and then a little bit open here, maybe even another phase after that. And they said the first phase would be late 2012. My guess, my opinion, would be that first phase is going to be the Be Our Guest restaurant, possibly the Little Mermaid ride also, since those are right next to each other. Perhaps that section will open up at once. Maybe, half of that, maybe another half of that. But I would say Storybook Circus half and that whole right half of New Fantasyland will open at a much later time. I think that is a lot further behind in construction than the closer half is. Of course, there's a lot more to it than that. There's the castle walls that they have to build, the whole castle courtyard just behind the castle. There is the Princess Meet and Greet that I said would be replacing Snow White's Scary Adventures. So if I had to guess, I would say Be Our Guest and Little Mermaid will probably open first. That's when they'll close Snow White's Scary Adventure and start working on the Princess Meet and Greet. Then sometime next will be either Princess Meet and Greet or Storybook Circus. That would be my bet, and then everything else that they're working on, the coaster, etc., the Snow White coaster. But I couldn't say for sure. Disney hasn't said any of that with any certainty, so it's really very much up in the air. I don't believe there's been any construction started on the Seven Dwarves coaster yet, so I have to imagine that would be later on. But that's it. That's my best guess. Lots more questions pouring in here. Alex once again asked my overall opinion on the upcoming Buena Vista Street. Alex, I don't know if you were tuned in just a little while ago. I had mentioned that I really think everything that they're working on with Buena Vista Street is great. I talked kind of at length about what it all is bringing to California Adventure. So if you missed that, tune in a little bit earlier in the show. But in summary, I think it's going to look fantastic. So much better than what the entrance of California Adventure has been for so many years. Kyle in the chat room asks a great question. Any advice on the D23 Expo for someone who is new to expos? Well, certainly D23 Expo is coming up in August, and it was 4 days last time for the first time. It's 3 days this time, which is good because I was exhausted last time. But there's a lot to say about the D23 Expo. If I had to summarize any advice to see the most out of the D23 Expo would be, one, to expect standing in lines. There were very, very, very long lines to get into the biggest presentations, not like San Diego Comic-Con style lines with thousands, like 6,000 plus people, but there were a couple thousand people waiting in line, and if you didn't get there early, you wouldn't have made it into those. However, with the schedules, if you were waiting in line for those big presentations, you likely missed the smaller presentations, which also had very long lines and had people shut out of those as well. I didn't even make it to any of the smaller presentations at the last D23 Expo. I only went to the big presentations that had thousands of people in it, and I felt like I saw a lot. But my advice would be to just go over the schedule, pick what you think are the absolute most important presentations that you want to go to, and wait in line for those as early as you can. The show floor at the first D23 Expo was not all that impressive. There was a great Walt Disney Parks and Resorts exhibit that was fantastic, but it would only take you about 15 minutes to walk through. After that, everything else was just a lot of marketing, promotional, nothing terribly exciting, sort of, and hopefully they're going to improve on that this time around, but I wouldn't necessarily say you would spend more than a couple hours wandering the show floor at the D23 Expo unless they make some huge sweeping improvements to it this time. Instead, you'll spend a lot of the time just waiting for presentations and then enjoying those. Those are really the bulk of what the D23 Expo is all about. Let's see, what other questions? I'll answer a couple of more here from the chat room. Alexander asks, what are your thoughts on the new Pirates segment in World of Color? Hey, that's a great question because I was actually thinking about sharing audio from that on this week's show. Didn't decide to bring it into this week's show. I may play that next week. I've already posted a video over at InsideTheMagic.net of that Pirates segment, and I loved it. Somebody commented on the YouTube video that I posted that perhaps it should have been better as an encore to World of Color rather than kind of stuck in the middle, and I could agree with that. It's a long segment. It's more than 3 minutes long. I think it's almost 4 minutes long, and it replaces the previous Pirates sequence, plus also replaces the Night on Bald Mountain sequence, which was one of my favorites from the original version of World of Color. So to replace that, not thrilled about that, but however, it did do a great job with the new sequence. It's funny, it's intense, it's big, it's bold, it's colorful, it's packed with every effect that World of Color has, and as such, that sequence unto itself is a great representation of all that is Pirates of the Caribbean. However, should it be smacked right in the middle of the World of Color show, or actually almost toward the end of World of Color? I don't know if it really fits in necessarily. However, when it came on and Jack Sparrow was up there and the whole thing ended up finishing, the crowd was cheering for that sequence, whereas there wasn't a whole lot of cheers for other sequences. So Pirates is huge, and that's why Disney did it, and overall it's a whole lot of fun. All right, I'm going to take one more question and then wrap this up because we're at an hour and 30 minutes now. And let's see, one more question. Just flipping through the chat room now. Real quick, Steven said, I forgot to mention Wizarding World of Harry Potter's and Islands of Adventure. Yes, that's what I meant when responding to the question about which is my favorite park, Universal Studios Florida versus Islands of Adventure. It's kind of a toss-up is what I was saying. So thanks for that little update. All right, here's the last question. Alfred asks, between Star Tours and The Little Mermaid, which one do you like better? And Alfred says he likes Star Tours. That is a tough question. Two obviously new attractions. Star Tours is a remake of an old attraction, but with today's technology. The Little Mermaid is a totally new ride. I really don't know. They're so different. I mean, comparing Star Wars to The Little Mermaid is just two totally different properties to begin with, and then to compare Star Tours to The Little Mermaid ride, one's a slow-moving dark ride, one's a fast-paced motion simulator in 3D that's sci-fi, one's animated. They're two totally different attractions. It would really depend on what I'm in the mood for at the time. They did such an amazing job with this new version of Star Tours. I don't miss the old one at all, which is saying a lot because I was a big fan of the old Star Tours, and I think they did a really great job on the Little Mermaid ride too. So honestly, I would love to say I like one better than the other, but it is very much two new attractions that I think they're both great out at Disneyland. I think that they're great. That one is at Disneyland and one's in California Adventure, and then out here in Florida, one's going to be at Hollywood Studios and the other at Magic Kingdom. It's a great way to visit both parks. So can't really answer that one, unfortunately. It's another toss-up between the two. So, all right, that is going to be it for live questions from the chat room, and that is all from listener feedback this week.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And this is where we will wrap up show 324 of Inside the Magic. Thanks very much to everybody who has been tuning in live over at InsideTheMagic.net/live. Interacting live in the chat room is a whole lot of fun here at the end of the show, and I hope you're enjoying the live video version of the show as well. I noticed in the chat room just a little bit ago, my wife Michelle is in there, and she said that my mom is actually watching somewhere as well. So if you're still out there watching, hi Mom. Anyway, so let's wrap up the show here by saying no video podcast this week, but I did actually the interviews that you heard earlier with Bob Weiss and Mary Niven. I have not posted that video before; those were brand new, and so they are exclusive to this show. You heard them, or if you go back and you rewatch this video version of the podcast, then you can see the video of those of the pair of them talking to me just a couple of weeks ago at Disneyland as well. And so next week on the show, we'll continue to dive into Disneyland topics. Perhaps we'll talk about Mickey's Soundsational Parade, perhaps talk about the Disneyland Hotel, or many other possible topics. So much to cover, so many more interviews to share, so much more audio to share, and a whole lot of fun. So I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. And then, of course, I invite you to visit lanyardlab.com to check out all the different styles of custom lanyards that we have. You can submit a price quote request. We'll email you back with a price quote and a proof showing you what your lanyards will look like. That's lanyardlab.com. And between episodes of this show, be sure to visit InsideTheMagic.net. So there you will find not only the video recaps and the audio versions of this show to download, find it on iTunes as well, but also all of our news and articles and videos and photos and so much more all over at InsideTheMagic.net. And please follow us on Twitter and Facebook and on YouTube. We're approaching astronomical numbers on all of those, thousands of followers. So Twitter.com/InsideTheMagic, Facebook.com/InsideTheMagic, and YouTube.com/InsideTheMagic. You can follow, like, and subscribe on those three respectively. I do want to say a big happy Father's Day to all of you fathers out there as we wrap up the show. And thanks very much to all of you for listening and watching each and every week. Have a magical week. Bye.
There's a great big beautiful tomorrow, just a dream away.